I am trying to get out of a knitting slump. Me and knitting slumps are in such a love-hate relationship, I'll be honest with you. I fall in love with my knitting all the time, and then I just kind of hate her with a fiery passion, and I don't want to touch her or see her ever again, and then it goes back and forth like a snake eating its own tail. I love knitting, I do. It's been my hobby for a very long time, but I also understand that knitting slumps are a thing, especially if you feel burnt out from your own hobby that's supposed to give you enjoyment. So I have some knitting patterns that are going to get you out of that knitting slump. These are just my personal opinions, and some that I have actually tried, some that I think are super fun, and other things that, would be very helpful to note. Disclaimer though, these are just all my personal opinions and my preferences and experiences on how I get out of a knitting funk, but sometimes the best thing to do is just to take a break. Take a break from your hobby, especially if you feel really burnt out. That's what I tend to do. I take long breaks, which means this channel does not get a lot of videos, but that's okay. Life happens. You can come back to it once you feel a lot more ready. I do have some general tips I want to share before I get into the pattern specific. One being the easiest thing for me to do if I feel like I'm slogging through a project is just DNF it. Do not finish it. Frog it if you want to. If it no longer brings you joy or it makes you feel sick to even look at it, frog it. That yarn could be used for something else. The world does not end if you didn't finish a project. Two, if I am in a knitting funk, I like to reorganize my yarn stash. Sometimes it's easy for me just to get overwhelmed by the yarn, but once I reorganize and see what I actually have, it gives me a lot more inspo to work with the stash that I actually do have. And a third general tip is I like to do a very low stakes challenge / project. So I will give myself a week to finish something, make it a hat, make it a bag, make it into, I don't know, a dress or something as a gift. If I give myself a deadline, it doesn't have to be like a really strict deadline, it's more of a project method, and I complete it, it gives me that hit of dopamine. It feels good. So those are just the general ways that I get myself out of a knitting slump. Like sometimes I will go watch like knitting podcasts and vlogs. They also inspire me and make me continue. I really like creative vlogs from other artists, like doodles and illustrations, even though I don't know how to, because it's fun for me. I like watching their videos. It just makes me feel like I'm in a knitting mood to also pursue my creative hobbies. Those are just some of my general tips though. Let us move on to the pattern specific tips. 1. If I am knitting something, I want to choose a pattern with instant gratification. So something simple like dishcloths, scrunchies, bookmarks, coasters, some things that are quick, something that keeps my hands moving. It would take me probably an hour or two to finish, but it gives me that dopamine hit, that level of serotonin that I really need right now, and reignite my knitting habit. I like doing quick, easy patterns. It keeps my hands moving even if I'm not making a sweater, if I'm not making any wearables or anything that will require a lot of brain power. I do something simple and easy. An example that I have here is the Leafy Washcloth by Megan Goodacre from the Trixie Knitter. This uses garter stitch and it is a cotton weight fiber. This is a free pattern on Ravelry and it has 3 different weights and 3 different measurements. So it has a DK weight yarn, worsted weight, and Aran weight, and it's so pretty and simple. It's also really good for beginners, and the finish size varies depending on the weight that you use. Also, I think this is just a really great scrap yarn project. If you have any leftover cotton yarn, I think this would be really, really cute. I'd probably make it for my friends as a gift. Another recommendation, going on to the fruit and nature theme, is the Slice of Citrus coaster by Elisa Brown from Little Kibbles. This is also a free pattern, and it uses the pie method by Elizabeth Zimmerman. So instead of working a regular coaster, probably like bottom up, it does it from the center and you turn it into a circle. And I think that's really cool. I know how to do it in theory, but I've never actually found a pattern where I was like, oh, I really want to make something with a circle. So it's very interesting to me. And this pattern seems like the perfect low effort, low stakes way of practicing your pie circle knits. This uses DK weight yarn and two needle sizes, 4.5 and 3.75 millimeters. If I made this, I will make so many lemons. I'll make so many oranges. My friends, my family will get them as gifts. I guarantee it. Another quick pattern that I would recommend, and this is a self-insert, it is the City Scrunchie by me. It is also a free Ravelry download, and I do have a YouTube video, like I have a tutorial on how to make it. I'll leave it here. It is a scrunchie. It's your basic everyday scrunchie. I remember when I was in a bit of a knitting slump, maybe like last year, all I did was make scrunchies because I still wanted to knit something with my hands, and it was so easy, it was so simple. And you know what I did? I just sold it. I just sold all the scrunchies because I wanted the dopamine hit of finishing something, but not necessarily keeping it. I have plenty of scrunchies in my life. I still use a lot of the ones that I knitted, but a majority of them I sell. The pattern is my very first knitting pattern that I've ever published, and I feel like it's a really easy base so you can customize it. I've definitely made things using that pattern as a base to create and practice intarsia and color work and even different textures and ribs. It's really fun. Highly recommend making scrunchies. Also, very low cost, low effort, low stakes. Another thing that I would recommend is to try a trendy or novelty pattern. These are patterns that you probably would not make any other time, but it's cute, it looks fun, and it looks a little bit silly. I think it's a great way to spark that creativity and playfulness that you might want in your designs or your pieces. So what I'm thinking of is just silly little things. A lot of it would be like amigurumis for crochet. I do have a pattern here that I think is really fun, and it is Frog by Claire Garland, and it is a frog. Legit, just a frog. It's 3 pounds 30, and it's just so cute. It's squishy. She uses Shop J's Katona, but also she recommends using Drop Sky with Drops Kid Silk or Drops Soft Tweed. There is a Korean version. I would say this pattern is more on the intermediate to advanced side of knitting because it does have some short row shapings and I-cord legs. For me, I think this is just a really cute, silly pattern that would be really great as a gift or something that you keep yourself. I have made stuffed animals for my friends. I've made a teddy bear. I've made a hedgehog. I think a frog will be the next thing I make as a birthday present. Going in to the animal theme, I also have the Rybka pouch by Rat and Sea Witch. Rybka, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is little fish in Polish, and it is a knitted pouch that can hold a myriad of things according to the description. I think it's cute because it is quite literally a fish pouch. Oh, so adorable, so cute, so weird, so unique. I love it. And also the little bobbled eye, like right there, just makes it look so fun to me. And it seems like a very simple pattern. It uses light fingering and lace weight yarn to create a fingering weight, but I can easily probably use a DK weight cotton or something thicker if I wanted it to be a lot easier for me to carry around. An option when it comes to working with bags is you can take some lining and line it up to the shape so it's a bit easier for you to carry things and it won't lose its shape as quickly. I think this is such a cute pattern. It's super fun and definitely something you can use leftover yarn for. And I feel like with a pattern like this, yarn gauge doesn't really matter so long as you get a really cute, fun, funky piece. Another kind of novelty pattern that I would recommend is the Winter's Bow by Rachel Borello Carroll. This is so cute. I've definitely featured bows on this channel before, but I think one can say it again. Bows are pretty trending in this decade, and I can see why. I don't usually go for bows, but I can see why it's popular. This one is a free Ravelry download, so it is free. You can sew it into a barrette clip or just use a bobby pin to pin your hair back. For me personally, I would probably just like hot glue a barrette clip and then stick it on. And I have featured other bows before, but I wanted to give something that was free and had a different type of texture. So this one uses a linen stitch, so it adds a bit of complexity and it gives more of a woven look than your typical garter stitch or stockinette stitch bow would give you. Plus, because it's a linen stitch, I'm pretty sure that it's a bit thicker and more sturdier compared to stockinette, which would probably curl. Next tip, I would go for a pattern that was modular or piece by piece. So when I think of that, I think of patchwork, I think of knitted motifs, I think about what I can make as a square and just attach it together. So that way I don't have to worry about making a whole piece all in one. I'm just knitting a little part of it. The best example that I have is the J.W. Anderson color block patchwork cardigan. I have seen many crocheters do this on YouTube back in like the panorama era. But for me, I would just go for a knit because the original was a knit. I really like this piece and it looked so nice. I was very tempted to knit this up maybe years ago, probably, but I was just always a bit scared too. I was like, I need to feel good about it. But now that I'm a bit older, at the ripe old age of 27, I can understand that, hey, I could always just knit a piece here, knit a piece there when I feel like it. If I just want to make something simple, I can always make that. I can always knit just a small piece of it rather than baking the whole pie, so to speak. Also, in terms of designs, it is very simple and it is free. As a pattern, you can find it on Ravelry or I think the actual website. I will double check. It uses super chunky weight yarn and 3 different needles, so 8mm, 5.5, and 4mm. So I assume that this sweater or this cardigan is not going to take very long to finish, especially if you're doing it chunk by chunk. And another thing on top of that would be the Stella Quilt Blanket by Laura Penrose. She is a YouTuber here on YouTube, and I was thinking about what other patterns would fit into this type of tip. I was watching Knits by Mandy and she was explaining that the Stella Quilt Blanket is really nice because you work on it as a motif. So if you're interested in making a quilt, then maybe the Stella Quilt Blanket is for you because it looks like a quilt, but it's not a quilt. It uses DK or fingering weight yarn held double, but I will say it is an intermediate pattern, so you would need to learn the German short row shapings, etc., etc. At least that's what's according to the Ravelry here. I wanted something with a modular construction. I don't usually make quilts or blankets, I will be honest. A part of me does think about making it. My mom makes a lot of crochet blankets and I do have a quilt on my bed that she's made. Perhaps one day, but maybe not today. Another tip that I have is to try a one skein project. Something short, something simple, something that if you only have one skein, you know you don't have any pressure to finish or create a whole sweater out of it. I think for me personally, I like these projects because if I only have one skein of something, then I know I can't make something big. I just have to make something simple. And speaking of simple, an example that I have here is the Simple Thing by Melina Brell, which is allegedly a dupe for the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit. I don't know if that's true. I think so, but I haven't looked at the Sophie scarf in great detail, so I can't tell you that. However, I do know that the Simple Thing is very cute. It's really, really nice, and it is also something that you can change up and play around with, so it can be adapted to make it longer, shorter, wider, or narrower depending on how much yarn you have. I think for something like this, you can definitely play around with the construction and make something that is worth the bang of a one skein. You can also make other stuff like cowls or bandanas like this one. This one used leftover scrap yarn from Drops Bell from one of the outfits I've made long ago, and I really like it. It's still something that I use to this day. Because it has a fun lace pattern, I really enjoy making it. It keeps my mind kind of focused on it, which I like personally. And even though I did say you can't make a sweater out of one skein, I will say I did do that for the Ranunculus by Midori House Knits. I am recommending this for one skein project because I knitted a top using the Ranunculus and one skein of my Yarn Story Co. It is so nice. It fits me pretty well. And it only used one skein and finished so quickly. I think I did the yoke in like 2 days because I was so invested in finishing the yoke. And then the needles, the body just breezed past because I used such large needles at 6mm, the fingering weight yarn. So the project ended up feeling very billowy and light, and that was what I really, really appreciated about the ranunculus, hence why I'm recommending it in this tip. That being said, I think the ranunculus, a lot of people have opinions on it. I gave my opinion on it. It's not a hard pattern. Is it the best pattern in the world? No. But is it fun to knit? Yes, it is. Let's talk about bulky yarn projects. Some people love bulky yarn, some people hate it. I am of the mindset that some things are really fun to make with bulky things. And I am one of those people where if I am stuck in a rut, I will just knit something bulky, even if it hurts my hands. Because those fingering to DK weight projects, as nice as they are, as beautiful as they look, can also hurt and cramp my hands because of the small yarn and just the mindless knitting. So I always go for a bulky weight project if I want to, 1, finish something quick, 2, want to rest my hands, and 3, I just want to do something good and fun, and I'm not thinking about how it looks. I just want something cool. So I really like using bulky yarns to alleviate my stress and also stop me from using too many small needle projects. It just kind of helps distract me in between those long-term projects like a sweater or a dress. One pattern that I have as a recommendation is the Faye Fringe Bag by Anna Scala. This is $8 US, so a little bit expensive for the typical knitting pattern. I don't really mind that though. I think this is such a cute bag. It is worked in a mix of yarns with a unique textured stitch. This one almost looks like crochet, I'll be honest. When I first saw this piece, I thought it was crochet, but it's not, it's knit. And it uses 1, 2, I think 3 or 4 colors. No, so it has 5 contrast colors and 2 main colors. So there are 7 colors. You can easily use your stash yarn for this. It does use crochet hooks for provisional cast on and the finishing fringe at the side seams. For me, a bag like this is so cute and it's just so funky. For me, this is your quirky aunt personified. That's the best way I could describe it. It's like the aunt that goes to the farmer's market and only drinks oat milk raised by oats from I don't know where. And if you're looking for a wearable that is still pretty thick and bulky, I would go for the Rib and Roll Sweater by Mia. This one is a relatively recent release. It released in February of this year. And the reason why I chose it is because of the ribbing. I am not the biggest fan of rib, but this rib texture is so cute, and it's a 2x2 rib piece with an oversized chunky roll neck and then the large turned up cuffs. It's boxy, it's oversized, it's slightly cropped. It's very of the trendy side of knitting, but I really love it. I think it's so cute. And I just really love the piece itself. I think it's really fun and bulky and something new for my eyes to see. It does use 6.5mm needles and the yarn weight is bulky. It comes in 8 sizes and uses a wool yarn. I feel like I do have enough yarn for this. Will I make a thick sweater for my upcoming holidays to cold climates? I don't know. We shall see. But this one I can foresee if you wanted to make something super bulky that is a sweater or just a general thing. Would recommend this one. It looks really pretty. If you do want to go for accessories though, there is the Jen's Half Hour hat by Jen Gagley. This one is a free Ravelry download and uses 100 grams of bulky yarn. It's very quick, it's very easy. She only gives one size to fit, I think, most adult heads, and only uses about 80mm of yarn on bulky weight. Either Wool and the Gang Crazy Sexy Wool or the wool from We Are Knitters. It is such a bulky hat, and I know people have mixed feelings on bulky hats, but I think they're really fun and I love wearing them. It makes my head look like a mushroom. It's cute. And for my final tip, I would always go for a pattern with texture variety. So something that has texture, that has like cables or lace, especially lace and yarn overs and knit two togethers or slip knits and pearls. I would go for that. Some things are not too hard, but just interesting enough for me to stay engaged and think about the pattern is a great way for me to fight the boredom. This is a personal preference. Some people really love working with stockinette stitch. I get really tired of it sometimes. That's why I don't usually like making vanilla socks, because I'm using 2.25 millimeter needles and I just do not like doing stockinette plain. That's why if I'm ever doing a sock, I like doing it as a colorwork sock. So that being said, having a pattern with texture or things that look interesting that keeps your eyes distracted is really great for me personally, as somebody who loves working with texture and weird colors and designs. I think that's fun to me. An example of this would be the rib lace raglan by James N. Watts. I think I've mentioned it in the podcast in a couple of videos. That pattern, that sweater, has gotten me out of a knitting funk for what feels like a while. I really love patterns with unique textures, and the rib lace raglan is that to me, because it's a mix of rib, it has lace yarn overs and knit twos, and it's a really simple 2-row repeat, so it really keeps my mind going without needing to think too much and still get a really nice piece out of it. Plus, I know that because of the open holes, I can wear it out here and it'll still be okay for me to wear. I will probably talk more about it on the podcast if I remember to film it. Going back to that though, I do recommend Lacy Loop Tee by Other Loops. This one has a loose fit, classic round neck, and it has these details of pearl stitches, an eyelet pattern, and then a ribbing edge design. It's worked from the top bottom and it just looks so cool. Ooh. It uses fingering weight yarn and it looks so professional. It looks like something you can get out of the high street, but you made it yourself, and it just looks so beautiful to me. I love the eyelet designs. I think it's so pretty, and with the weight of the yarn, even though it looks really oversized, it doesn't look heavy to me because of how open and wide it is. And also in terms of sleeve length, it's perfect. For me, absolutely beautiful. Stunning. I'd probably make it after my rib lace raglan. I feel like I have enough yarn for it, but it was either going to be this or the Love Note sweater. If you have any thoughts, let me know. And last but not least, the other recommendation I have for this tip is the Lonely Leftovers vest by Wool and Beyond. This is so pretty. Like genuinely, it's such a pretty stitch. It's just garter stitch using Aran weight yarn, but the way that it's constructed and the way that it sits on the body, I think looks so fun and beautiful to me. So she recommends using scrap yarn or drops Alaska or drops Nepal, or any yarn that gives you the same gauge. I'm not usually the biggest fan of garter stitch because it's just all stockinette or it's just all knit rows. But for me, this one looks really unique because of the back. It's got this really interesting I-cord at the back that I think looks really cool, and I'm very tempted to knit this as well. Every time I do these inspiration videos, I myself want to make everything, but unfortunately, there's too many good patterns in the world. You live and you learn. Anyway, I think that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any tips to get out of a knitting funk, please let me know in the comments down below. But until then, my name is Bash Harry. This is the Harry Knit, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye!